What if you were in a fantasy football league where you could only pick players from a single school? Which school would you pick? Obviously, this league would have some very poor balance, but it creates a pretty fun roster building exercise. So let's dive into some examples. Starting off with Alabama, which may be the easiest roster to build. At quarterback, I'd slot in Tua, but you could also argue for Hurts, which I'll be using in my Oklahoma squad. Wide receivers, I'd roll with Jerry Jeudy and Jameson Williams. At running back, there's no shortage of options, but let's go ahead and do Derrick Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs, and then Josh Jacobs in the flex. At tight end, there is no Alabama tight end in an active roster currently, but we can slot in Irv Smith Jr. from the practice squad, and then close it out with Will Reichard at kicker to form a pretty scary looking squad. Up next for Oklahoma, I'd put in Jalen Hurts at QB, which you could easily do Baker Mayfield as well. CeeDee Lamb at the wide receiver 1 with Sterling Shepard at the 2. Joe Mixon and Stevenson at running back slots, Marvin Mims Jr. in the flex, Mark Andrews at the tight end, and then Austin Seibert at kicker. Again, a scary looking squad, but not as deep at the receiver and backer spots as you were with Alabama. But you also don't have a gap at tight end like Alabama does. Ohio State, we can start off with CJ Stroud at QB, Garrett Wilson and Terry McLaurin at the receiver slots, J.K. Dobbins and Zeke at running back. We'll flex in JSN, get Nick Vannett at tight end, and we'll have to leave the kicker slot open. This squad would be super deep at wide receiver with Marv and Olave on the bench, but super thin at the running back position. LSU may have the biggest boom potential of all, but struggles heavily with the lack of backers. You have Joe Burrow at QB, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson at receiver. Tyrion Davis-Price will be off the practice squad for running back with no one to back him up. Brian Thomas Jr. at the flex, Foster Moreau at tight end, and then Cade York at kicker. This team is 2 running backs away from being truly elite. USC has an interesting squad with Sam Darnold at QB, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Drake London at receiver, Marshawn Lloyd, Keontae Ingram at running back, Michael Pittman Jr. at the flex, and no tight end or kickers to close out. Again, a deep squad at receivers, but lacking in running back depth, tight end, and a kicker. Up next, Georgia's led by veteran QB Matt Stafford, with young receivers in Pickens and McConkey, adding in James Cook and DeAndre Swift at backers, with Nick Chubb at the flex. Then you get Brock Bowers to close out the tight end, and an empty slot at kicker while Hot Rod tries to work his way back into the league. Clemson has a really interesting squad, with Trevor Lawrence at QB, T. Higgins and DeAndre Hopkins at receivers, Travis Etienne and Will Shipley at running back, Ray McLeod at the flex, and Davis Allen at tight end. Again, no kickers for Clemson. Florida, we can do Anthony Richardson at QB, Demarcus Robinson and Van Jefferson at receiver slots, Damian Pierce at running back, Ricky Pearsall in the flex, Kyle Pitts at tight end, and then you can close out with Eddie Pinheiro at the kicker. Their rivals, Florida State, you could put in Famous Jameis at QB, Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson as the rookie wide receiver tandem, Trey Benson and Cam Akers in the backfield, with Dalvin Cook joining in at the flex, and then Jaheim Bell at tight end, and Dustin Hopkins as the place kicker. And last but not least, we got a little bit of a sleeper squad with Iowa State. You got Brock Purdy at QB, Allen Lazard and Xavier Hutchinson at receivers, potentially one of the best running back duos with Breece Hall and David Montgomery. You got Kenny Nwangwu at flex, and then Charlie Kohler at tight end. And again, no kickers. There are many, many more that I could do. I tried for the most part to only do ones where I had QBs or there weren't too many holes in the roster. But what do you guys think? Who did I miss, and how would you line them up? Let's see who can build the best roster down in the comments. Hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll catch you on the next one.